Lovely.
Yes.
Nice show, guys.
Yeah, that was great.
Thanks,
Scott,
man.
it was a pleasure.
Yeah,
Skepticality. I always say skeptical. I don't like it.
I gotta
Yeah,
say,
it was
the
absolute pleasure, Robert.
OLED
And
TVs are what blowing me away right now.
I feel like I wish we had a space to just come bring you back for like an hour. You know,
like a TV
figure
special.
it out.
Yeah.
there's just so much to talk about.
Display tech is cool. It just gets better every year, and there's some futuristic stuff that I'm hoping. We were talking about quantum dots in terms of how they are as far as being stimulated by a light source, but there's no reason you couldn't stimulate it with an electron source, and it could be a direct emissive display like an OLED, and that to me is what will be coming next, if there is a next coming up in the next couple of years. So.
How reasonable would it be to approach one of these newer displays at those resolutions as big production displays for like a Mac Pro or a big beefy PC or something? Because it used to be, oh well, if you do that, it's 1080p. You're kind of locked at this lower resolution. There are better display options for your PCs and Macs or whatever. But to me, it just feels real tempting to go grab like a 55-inch Vizio or something and have a really sweet display.
I know a lot of people buying those 40-something inch 4K UHD TVs for specifically using it as a computer monitor, something supersized, be it somebody with vision problems or if you just want a large format display. And
Yeah.
I know professionals too, be it a colorist for movies or somebody in just some sort of video production that will have one of these sets as a kind of a reference display. Granted, if you're doing that professionally for video work, you're buying a good reference monitor from a reputable company.
Sure.
But it's always good to look at it on a consumer product too, just to verify it.
Cost-wise, it's some of these prices I was looking at on a couple of your reviews. They're not all that much more. In some cases, less than high def widescreen stuff from LG or Samsung or whoever for the desktop. So it doesn't.
Totally. Suddenly I have an urge to buy those ultra wide curved screen displays for my workstation setup as well. But I think in the short term I'll be buying like a larger sized 4K UHD screen just to have as like my main monitor, and then take some of my smaller monitors and push them to the side a little bit. But with OSs, depending on which OS you're using, the ability to do scaling really nicely and to take whatever icon size and font size and properly display it with the additional pixels is key. And I think Windows 10 is doing a better job at it than previous versions. I'd really like to mess around more with Mac OS just to see how they handle things in terms of pixel scaling and font scaling with different apps and things. Because that's one of the problems I run into. It's like, oh, I can make the desktop look okay, but then some apps don't support increased resolution or the way I need it sized particularly. And that's just one of those little complaints I have about. I think OSs should be everything on the screen should be able to be affected by, say, a dot per inch setting or whatever you want, rather than
you're basically asking for responsive design on a larger scale. We're all worried about it on phones and tablets, but we forget about doing that on desktop.
Like, the desktop should be a completely rendered surface in a sense, where it's like, you know what, any object on there can be dealt with independently, and even if it doesn't have that native font support or scale support, be able to do it.
Sure.
That just brings into a bigger issue of software.
Sorry to interrupt. Beatmaster just sent a link that Project Fi has a installment plan. Google didn't mention it during the announcement.
Oh, but they have it though. All right.
I was gonna say, because for a while there, the Nexus 6 they had with installment plans where you can make payments on it too. So good. I want to switch my mom over to that, but she loves Siri too much, man. Mama needs Siri, so she's gonna stick with iOS for a while. So I might move myself over though to Fi. I like the pricing.
The 5X. I need a new phone.
I just got a Galaxy S6, so I'm like, I'm not in a hurry for anything at the moment. So
my phone keeps crashing on me now when I take calls. That's not cool.
That's unacceptable.
I know, it's a phone. I should be able to answer calls.
Nah, it's not the killer app for phones, I don't think.
Damn phone calls.
I'm going to call this episode Schrodinger's Television because we were talking about quantum dots, and Tinvec just submitted that, and it made me laugh. So there.
Okay.
Quantum dots.
Not bad.
But if you get a chance to go visit, there's Nanosys in the South Bay. They do the quantum dot material for Samsung TVs and a bunch of others. So, and then companies like 3M will take that material and embed it in the diffuser layers that manufacturers can swap out for one of the regular diffuser layers. And that's why suddenly everyone's doing it, because it's so cheap to do now, relatively speaking. It's just we're going to take out one part we're already using and throw in another part and put in some different colored LEDs, and then have a display that we can now claim has we're 98% DCI color spec or whatever for. So
I mean,
and you figure too, with Hollywood already authoring this content in that color space, it's not going to be. I don't think it'll be much longer before we'll have expanded color palette in our regular viewing arsenal. So.
Yeah.
Beatmaster was asking a question in the chat room I thought was interesting, and I just didn't work it into our conversation. But do quantum dots have any downsides right now, or are they kind of a quantum dot is a quantum dot, and they won't improve, the technology won't improve over time?
No, I mean the one thing they did compared to like a year or two ago was to remove cadmium as a toxic element within the formula, and when they did that, it made the particles much smaller. And when you're talking like, wow, okay, half a nanometer suddenly changes the wavelength, and so you have to be able to bend these particles very precisely. So that became an issue, but that's just a technical thing that you work it out and you figure a way to do it. But I see no downside to this. The elements are the particles are very stable. They're suspended in a trapped layers of plastic, and it does nothing but either improve what you see or improve how bright it is or the overall battery life if it's a mobile device. And they've been in pretty wide use now for a couple of years, starting, I think one of the first devices was Amazon's Fire, one of the Fire tablets was the very first one, and they simply went for, we want it to be as bright as possible. So they used
all about nits.
Yep, it was a very loose filter. They weren't all about expanded color palettes. They were just simply, we want to be able to just create it as bright as can be, or brighter than last year's at the same power consumption level. So it's cool stuff. But as neat as it is, I'm looking forward to seeing if anyone does an emissive display based on quantum dots rather than just helping an LED and an LCD make better quality of light.
So that would be the down the road improvement. It's not in the dot itself, but just using the dot in a different way.
Totally, because LCDs, I mean, no matter how good they are, they all have issues with off-axis viewing. You're basically looking at a very, very expensive light filter with a bright light behind it pushing through. And plasma, rest in peace. But OLED is the cool thing, being the emissive, display technology that should assume, the lead role. Currently, I mean, once you see an OLED display and it can do perfect black, it's really hard to go back and look at other stuff, especially at off-axis viewing angles. If you're not seated in the sweet spot, you still have phenomenal picture quality. It's just the cost right now. LG's best OLEDs at screen sizes in the 60+ inch range are getting into the price of a good used car, and so it's not for everyone. I mean, I want them cheaper, but I'm not dropping 10 grand on a TV this week either. So
I remember the first plasmas were like 36 grand.
Yeah, well, that's true too, and it took a long time to even get down to half price that. I remember some of the 42-inch models we were looking at were $13,000 to $17,000, and none of those TVs are around anymore. Those are expensive investments just to have that flat screen quality. So.
And were they 720p or what were they at the time? They weren't even that, were they?
They were
they
probably
were 720.
Were they? Okay.
I think they did.
They were also using rectangular
1080i.
pixels too, so they would
I don't think 1080p was
They would do 1024 by 768 and then just stretch it. It was as long as it had the vertical resolution, we call it HD.
That's terrible.
I remember the posting the reviews and trying to figure out a good way to explain that not all 1080 in a headline. Try to explain that we're talking about 1080p, which is better than 1080i, like in 6 words.
And then they try to describe it's like there really are no 1080i displays unless you're talking like CRT maybe or
right.
I'm just so happy.
My DLP, I had a Mitsubishi DLP that would only do 1080i. It would not do 1080p.
Changed the bulb for CNET.
Yep.
1080p with a DLP. 1080i DLP?
Maybe do I have it backwards? Was it only 1080p and not 1080i? Maybe that was it. But it would only do one of the 1080s. It would not. It would not do
That's
both.
interesting. I have seen actually Sharp had a 1080p LCD that wouldn't accept 1080p input. So it had physically 1080p pixels,
Well,
but
yes,
input resolution was up to 1080i.
right. And I'm assuming that was it. It wasn't about the capability. It was I could only because I had a DirecTV box that could do 1080p, but it would never send it because it's like, nope, this TV can't take it.
That's one thing. Just since HDMI and just TVs with better abilities to detect what you're plugging into it, that's really helped simplify a lot for a lot of people in terms of
HDMI is a blessing and a curse though because of DHCP. There's some things that I still do component for because I know everything will work, and as component is just dying, it's going away. Those sort of workarounds become less possible.
Unless you find one of those devices that supposedly does DHCP but actually doesn't. Wasn't there like a bunch of boxes from China, like Blu-ray players and stuff, supposedly didn't? It met the spec, but it actually didn't do it, and so you could just whatever.
I want to say Monoprice has those Fury HD boxes again, where you could plug in your HDMI source.
I thought they went out of business. Remember we bought?
So did I, and I think Patrick Norton sent me a link the other day. He's like, "Isn't this what we used to?" And I was like checking out Monoprice for other things too. Monoprice has a bunch of stuff. Roger, you were showing me that musical instrument they were selling.
Yeah, it's like they sold instruments now. It's like, what?
And then I was looking at they had a masking projection screen they were selling as well, and I'm like, for the money.
Interesting. They're trying to be like this new kind of, kind of like person who I guess they're focusing on like college dudes or something, because everything they sell there is like something some guy in a dorm would buy. You know what I mean? It's not like Amazon where we can, have clothes. Everything on Monoprice is like something a frat guy. Oh, we need for the frat house. It's like the frat demographic. Oh, what can we get for the frat house? Go to Monoprice.
Beer fridge, guitar, HDMI cable.
Saxophone for the romantic nights. You want with the lady?
Romantic.
I do buy bulk speaker cable from them though, and I do appreciate it. It is good quality stuff.
Robert, it was good seeing you again. I gotta take off because I hear my child screaming.
Oh, okay. Always a pleasure, Raj.
I'll get the rest of the stuff done in like the next 2 hours.
Okay. Yep, that's fine.
LG wants their projector back. I have to give it back to them, so I have to finish testing
that's
it.
sad.
I'll get that done today. It's okay. It's affordable. I'm due a new projector here soon. So.
Did I say DHCP? I meant HDCP. Yeah. It's because of that assignment of IP addresses.
Yeah. HDCP.
Yes. Yeah.
That's one thing they have.
It's all the same letters. I just put them in the wrong order. Sorry.
One thing I appreciate about some manufacturers like Samsung is that they actually hire a third-party company to verify their ports and to make sure they implemented them properly, because that gets rid of all of those stupid connectivity issues. Just having the folks who design the chipsets that go into those TVs do a verification to make sure it supports everything properly. When the various signal formats come through, that it's detected properly, and that you're not getting weird handshake issues or the snow or no screen or whatever. All the killers that just drive you crazy. You would think that's a problem that would just go away over time, but everyone's looking to save money here and there, and if they can not get something verified and just implement it was right on paper, but it didn't make it into the product properly, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah. Still, there's so much good home theater stuff right now. Audio, new 3D formats, all the 4K streaming stuff coming.
Yeah, and the 4K thing feels like it's starting to, it felt like pie in the sky maybe even 8 months ago, but lately everything seems to be aligning, I guess, or something. Something's happening, and it feels like it's good movement on all sides for that. So I'm kind of excited for once.
Yeah, I feel like we've been in a trough, Robert, and I'm sure you're more aware of this than anybody, where 3D wasn't really that exciting for a lot of people, and we didn't have a lot to get excited about displays for a couple of years there, and now 4K content's coming out. Like, it feels a little bit like HD did around the year 2000, right? Where it's like, ooh, there's a little bit of content, the prices are coming down, like starting to be time to pay attention.
I agree. Everything's working well. The compression schemes are there to take advantage of it. More of us have broadband.
What's the
And
name of that consortium? I couldn't remember it off the top of my head either. But it's
for
got
which,
everybody in it. Like everybody under the sun wants to create that
for which
open codec.
Oh, I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I remember Microsoft, Google, and a lot of the heavy video players are. I think just about every manufacturer.
Everybody but Apple was in it, pretty much.
Yes, that was the curious missing component there. But those kind of things are necessary, especially when you look at other countries too. In particular for digital television, for broadcast over the air. I want to say it was Brazil that waited until they could come up with a box that had almost no royalties associated with it, so they could distribute it to the population cheaply, and they weren't bound in these agreements where the half the cost of this set-top box goes into royalties and other proprietary technologies, and it's like, yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, I understand the desire to make money, but at the same point, when it comes to getting content or getting product out to enjoy this content to more people at prices we want to pay, that's the way to do it. And
the Alliance for Open Media is the name.
Yes, that's what I need to go write up about.
Amazon, Cisco, Google, Intel, Microsoft, Mozilla, Netflix. That's just some of them. That's not even anybody.
The AFOM. I like it. It's a good acronym.
The Alliance.
Yes.
And then there's the Horde for H.264. No, I don't.
MPEG LA. That's their
the Horde.
baby.
MPEG LA, the Horde.
They are
of
the
video
Horde.
codecs.
Oh man,
that's great.
Well, I'm for the Horde normally, except in this case.
Yeah. You got to be picky.
Yep. All right. Well, I am out of the post. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.